Want to welcome officially our author for tonight, Tawna Fenske. Tawna, we're so glad to see you. I'm a big fan and read so many of your books.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is that intro was so fun to watch. The name game.
We've got to figure out what everybody's reading, right? I mean, that's what we're all working. What are the different book recommendations?
A lot of new stuff added to my TBR list. So,
well, Tawna, for a lot of our readers who are new to you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into writing?
Yeah, so I am a USA Today bestselling romantic comedy author. I have a little more than 40 books out. I actually haven't counted for a while. So, yeah, my books have kind of ranged from super saucy to a little bit more on the brink of like women's fiction, but comedy is the common element with all of them. So even if I'm dealing with something like divorce or grief or infidelity or alcoholism, there's always a thread of humor that runs through. Had a reviewer once years ago called my books Heartache and humor go hand in hand, and that's always kind of been like, yeah, that nailed it as far as what my writing is like. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I think my first book came out in 2011, so I've been published for a little over a decade now.
Well, and I did read that Heartache with Humor tag, and I've seen that with your books. How do you seamlessly pull both of those together? Because I have to admit, when I am reading your books, yes, there's the heartache aspect and all those things you mentioned, the infidelity and, and poverty. I mean, all these things, and this might sound terrible, but I don't notice that really when I'm reading it. I'm focused more on the humor and the laugh out loud moments.
I think the germ of an idea for my books often comes from like the darker stuff, but it's just that, I come from a family where humor is kind of a defense mechanism or just a tool or just a way that we connect with each other. So I get asked a lot, like, how did you get your start writing, or how did you start writing romantic comedy? And the story I usually tell is that I had been, I gotta think for a second. I was with my first book sold to Harlequin, to a line called Bombshell, which you've never heard of because the line was canceled a month before my scheduled debut. So at that point, I had already written 2 follow-up books that had not made it to contract, and I'd spent the advance that I got for this book. So 1 month before that book was supposed to hit shelves, all on the same day, I get the call that the book's being canceled. I was told by my employer at the time that if I continued to disobey the company's pantyhose policy, I would be fired by the end of the week. And then I came home to find my cat dead. So all these things kind of hit at once. And I remember walking out onto the back deck with a glass of wine and being like, it's actually like, it's kind of funny that all this would happen all at one time. And like, it sort of like kind of this combination of laugh, crying, and like, there was this moment for me of like, okay, if I can find the humor in this sort of situation, then I can probably find it anywhere. And maybe that's more where I had to be channeling my writing. So it's kind of a shift for me. Then I immediately wrote a rom-com that I started submitting to agents, and took several years for us to sell that first book. And it's kind of been just on a roll ever since.
Wow. Okay. And I do remember the pantyhose policies. So did you end up getting fired for that? I've got to know.
I did not. I challenged them. Well, actually, staying with the humor vein, I started to challenge the policy in creative ways. So like one day I showed up in like a full business suit and rainbow striped toe socks, and another day like with a pastel pink suit and like bright red fishnets or whatever. Like just started being a complete smartass, and also helpfully pointed out that I had been consulting with a lawyer and that they weren't enforcing the policy across the board on everyone, and that they might want to reconsider firing employees for an unenforced policy. So they let it drop.
Good job. Because the last time I had pantyhose, way too long. I mean, that's one of those things I am glad to see long gone by the wayside.
Yeah, I'd probably date myself by even bringing that up at all. But yeah, it was a thing, and it was, quite a number of years ago.
Well, I mean, and with all that, even when you're trying to find the humorous aspect of that, when you're actually sitting down to put things on the page, what do you do to get into that mindset? Because even though you try to find the humor, everything's not always rainbows and sparkles, right?
It kind of like the humor often ends up getting layered in after the fact. So like I might approach like this book, for example, I knew there were going to be some funny scenes in it, but I'm dealing with some fairly serious topics. I mean, I've got a hero whose career is, dealing with forest fires and wildfires and, some fairly traumatic things. She's a nurse, obviously their careers. And they've got a lot of family drama around them. And then, of course, the big secret at the core of the story. So there's a lot of very heavy issues. And I knew about all of those things going into the story, but then kind of looking for those moments of levity or the things that make you, laugh till you pee yourself. So it's just kind of for me, it's always a balancing act. Like I might write a chapter and then like, okay, I need to put something funny here. And so that the humor tends to get layered on the third pass, unless it's, a scene that I've teed up from the beginning, like before I've even started writing, like, ooh, I've got to have a scene where this happens. So it kind of varies, but it's very much a layering act for me.
So what comes first for you then? Do you see the characters? Do you see those scenes? Do you have an overall theme for the books?
It depends. This one, for anybody who hasn't read it yet, I'm going to give away the secret, but it's something that's spoiled at the end of chapter, not spoiled. You know it at the end of chapter 1, what the big secret is. So it's not like, they avoided putting it in the back cover copy, I suppose, because they wanted people to be surprised at the end of the first chapter. So cover your ears for 10 seconds if you don't want to hear it. But end of the first chapter, the hero confesses that he has learned that his son is not biologically his. So a lot of the book is figuring out, wait, how did this happen? How, what does this mean as far as who deserves to know this secret, or who should keep it, who should spill the beans, who deserves answers, all those kinds of things. So that germ of the idea actually did come from a real life secret that a circle of acquaintance that I probably won't say much more about, but and interestingly enough, like in researching it and interviewing doctors and genealogists and stuff, I love the research side of books. But I learned that's actually a lot more common than you would think, that there are men out there raising children who are not biologically theirs, and they don't know that. And doctors, unless asked, won't reveal that information. So that's that. In this particular case, that was kind of the germ of the idea that bubbled around in my brain for years before I started to put it together. Like, okay, how can I turn this into a romance? Because that's immediately where it goes from there with me is kind of the romance thing. Interestingly enough, this was a story idea that I had for a really long time, and then workshopped it with the legendary Susan Mallory. That's how I got that beautiful cover quote there. She, an author friend of mine, kindly what's the word I'm looking for? I can't find the word. Invited me to a plotting workshop thing with Susan, and there were 4 authors, and it was just a full day intensive. Like we brought the book that we were working on and plotted it out and planned it out, and that's how I ended up with that cover blurb from Susan. But so I had been thinking about this book itself for a really long time as more just a standalone. And it wasn't until I was already 2 books into my Where There's Smoke series, which is all about smoke jumpers in Oregon and Washington, that I started to think, well, it wouldn't take very much to revamp this. So Leo, the hero of the book, is actually a part of the smoke jumper world. And I still would get to write the book that I want to write, but now it becomes part of this popular series that I've really loved writing. So that was kind of a way of shoehorning it in, but it fit quite nicely.
Are we going to see more books in the Smoke Jumper series, or is it going to stay a trilogy?
It will probably stay a trilogy. I don't have any more contracted, and I kind of felt like 3 was a really good number with that one. So I've had other really long, I think my longest series was my Ponderosa Resort series, and that's 9 books, and that starts to feel really unwieldy. So I kind of like stopping it, like going into it knowing where there's a stopping point. But it depends. Like I've got a new one releasing. Actually, the prequel comes out Monday, and it's free on all platforms, called Killer Looks, and that's the Assassins in Love series. And I knew from the start of that one that that's just going to be 3 titles plus the prequel. So being able to know from the beginning so that you can kind of create this arc throughout is actually kind of fun, versus something like my Ponderosa Resort series that I just sort of like, I don't know, I'll throw in a new sibling. How about he gets a book or she gets a book? Everybody gets a book. So,
but I love the Ponderosa Resort series. I mean, and the first book pulled me in, Steph and Santa. I mean, we've talked about it here in book club before, and it pulled me in, and then I ended up reading all the other ones. I mean, Chef Sugar Lips and Dr. Stuff. I mean, the titles alone.
that whole series was my first foray into indie publishing. So I'm a hybrid author. I write, for publishers, traditional publishing, but that was my first step into indie publishing, and it kind of happened by accident. I was contracted at the time with Montlake for a bunch of other books, and they switched one of my contract books that I had planned on being like a 90,000 word book to a shorter, like 20 or 25,000 word novella. And suddenly I had this gap in my schedule that I wasn't anticipating. And I'm like, I'd been thinking about writing a holiday short, and I had been wanting to try indie pubbing, even though it kind of scared the heck out of me. And so another author friend, Kate Nolan, held my hand through the scary parts of the learning how to self-publish and formatting, and hiring an editor and hiring a copy editor and cover design and all of that stuff. And that the end result was Stud Meth and Santa. And I had so freaking much fun writing the book and creating the characters. And I kind of had told myself, if this does well, if it sells well, or if I just plain enjoy it, I'll take it from there and turn it into a series. And it just kind of kept going. And I just kept falling like, oh, I thought I was going to maybe be done with this one. And then I'm just so in love with this brother or that sister, or holy crap, what happens if there's another sister nobody knew about? And it just that whole series was some of the most fun I've had writing anything.
And then how you sprung from that into the Juniper Ridge, which had a whole other unique family setting, essentially, right?
Yeah. I love unique setups for series, and then each book, of course, has their own setups. But like the setup for Ponderosa, for those who haven't read it, is that there's this philandering father who had adult children with all these different women. And upon his death, the adult children come together and turn his vanity ranch in rural Central Oregon into a resort. And so the series kind of follows along as they're turning this resort into something profitable. But these adult siblings are getting to know each other because they all had different moms and grew up in completely different worlds. And they're now kind of bonding and getting to know one another as they start this business. So that was sort of the basic setup of that. And then, of course, each sibling has his or her own side story and journey to love. And then Juniper Ridge is also siblings. You can tell I love the sibling thing, but that one kind of got born out of Ponderosa. I introduced some of the side characters in that series, but that one is so it's another one of like my writer brain bubbling on something that from real life. I don't know if any of you have seen, there was a documentary not long ago about the Rajneesh cult from years ago. So that growing up in Oregon, it was something that in the 80s I was super, I'd hear it on the news all the time about the, this weird ass cult in rural Oregon. So as kind of time has gone on, it's sat vacant and empty for a really long time. And then eventually the grounds, this cult compound got turned into a Young Life, like a church camp. And I always thought that was such an unusual thing. And it's like, they've got water slides and, all the old cabins and all these kind of things out there on this compound. So in my writer brain, I thought, well, what if somebody took this old cult compound and turned it into like a tiny self-contained town that was like, we bring in a grocer, we bring in a doctor, we bring in, police officers, and just create this tiny little self-contained community. And then this Hollywood family at the center of this, what if they turned it into like a combination social experiment reality TV show? So that's kind of the backbone of that whole series. And then again, each sibling gets their own story in that. So like creating this whole little world, I think that's my favorite part of writing series like that. And then just getting to know all the little individuals who make up the world.
How do you keep track of all of that then? Because the Ponderosa was 9 books. I forget exactly how many were in Juniper Ridge. Are you a plotter, pantser? Do you refer to a binder?
I'm a complete pantser, and yeah, there have been number of times where Ponderosa was a learning experience for me just because I didn't keep very good track, and I'm like, what the hell was that sibling's name again? Or how many? I don't even. And I'd have to I'm constantly going back and looking at old books and how did he die? What did it? So I'm super disorganized, and I'm very much a seat of my pants writer. So I just kind of stumbled and staggered my way through Ponderosa. With Juniper Ridge, I got a little bit smarter and knew from the start, the siblings' names and who are they and what's kind of going to be, the basic story for each of them. But I'm still finding out, like, weird little side note here. So one of my secret baby romances, Show of Honor, which came out right before Christmas, the hero is a Navy SEAL, and his two mothers, were introduced in one of my Ponderosa books. Patty and Colleen are kind of these mother hens of the whole series. But I realized about halfway through writing Show of Honor that I had given Colleen, one of his moms, 2 different last names, one in way back in Snowbound Squeeze, which is part of the Ponderosa series, and one in a different Juniper Ridge book. And I'm like, shit, how am I going to get out of that one? So I like, they're in print and I can't undo it. They're in audiobook and everything. So I created this whole little thread where it was like, oh, she uses this name professionally and this name with family, and, took her wife's name at this age. Solved. So yeah, I write myself into those kinds of corners regularly. Sorry, my cat is yelling. This is Maggie who won't shut up.
Hey, we all have our cats and dogs in this group, so we always love it when the petsters make a guest appearance.
We have, I was about to say 5 cats. We actually just lost our eldest senior kitty a couple weeks ago, but we'd have 4 cats and 2 dogs. And
I was going to say, don't you have like an entire menagerie at the house, right?
We do, yeah. Matt the cat was our beloved polydactyl. He was known, I posted about him all the time because he steals stuff around the house, and we just have a lot of character, and but he also had a lot of health problems, and he just had to say goodbye right before his 15th birthday a couple of weeks ago. So we're down to 4 kitty cats and 2 dogs.
Oh, I'm sorry. So
yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna put her out because she's very loud.
Well, shifting gears a little bit, since you were mentioning the postings, what's the story about the videos with your husband?
So my husband is a video producer with a master's degree in theater. And so yeah, we every now and then we'll do, I haven't done one for a while, but we'll do a lot of silly videos. You can find, if you search my name on YouTube, you can find tons of them. But yeah, it's usually it'll start with just I'll kind of mock up a script and he'll come up with lots of ideas to go with it, and then we'll film, and it's just, yeah, we'll sit around with a couple glasses of wine and kind of riff off of each other and just do these silly videos. And it's everything from, like, there was a fun one we did for years ago for a book called Protector for Hire, but it was about, I don't even remember how the theme came up, but it was just like ways to get frisky in the wilderness, I think. And so it was like all these little tips tied to that. And like my husband, bless his heart, there's a scene in there where he's like checking each other for ticks. And we're like in a public park, granted in the woods, but like people could walk by at any time. And he's like, oh, it'd be really funny if I just pull my pants down kind of, and you're like checking my butt for ticks. So you'll catch that little clip at the end of that video. Or actually that one has one of my favorite bloopers too, where he's like dangling, we're talking about playing with food, and he's like dangling a slice of bologna over my face and then drops it, and that was not meant to happen, and then the dog comes up and licks it off my face, and my husband utters the line, remember last week when you had dignity? So crap like that does end up in our videos. But it's, yeah, he's cute and it's talented at making these videos, so it's a lot of fun to do that with him. And yeah, part of a way of incorporating my own real life romance into
because I think I saw the one where it was like alternate uses for things that you find in your night table.
Oh yeah. That one I did with what book was that? The hookup, I think. It was the heroine in that book sells adult pleasure aids. And yes, so we kind of riffed on that for like alternate uses for your nightstand goodies. And yeah, I had everything from like using what's the wheel, Wartenberg wheel, like the one of the pokey thing, to like cut gift wrap. And there was some wrapping a present with bondage tape, and it was just, yeah, all kinds of silly stuff. One of my favorites was things not to do after a couple glasses of wine. And this one was all Craig's idea. He wanted to like have it start the day and like of waking up after supposedly too much wine, because this was tied to The List, which was a setup for that one. Is the heroine spills wine on her computer keyboard, and has to do this walk of shame to the computer shop, and she happened to be composing a list of all these sexy fibs that she'd made up over the years of things she had supposedly done to make herself sound wilder, and she'd never done any of them. So they embark upon this journey to cross up all the items on the list. So the whole, since the whole setup was about her, spilling the wine and making this regrettable decision. So Craig has this idea to things that you shouldn't do after a few glasses of wine. And it starts with, I think it was like cut your hair. And so it's like, or paint your nails. And it was like, I had nail polish all over my hands, and cut your hair. And Craig, you can see like literally in real life shaved part of his head just for this video. But
That's dedication.
Walks through all of the things that we've done over the course of the day. And then, but you get to this kitchen scene and it's like, get frisky in the kitchen. And we trashed the kitchen. There's like flour everywhere and mustard and a spatula and like, just, you know, making it look like some sexy scene. And then you'll catch this little blip of a butt print in the flour. And I legit had to make that butt print. Let me tell you, that's hard to get off your butt. And it was cold. So
Okay.
yeah, the things we do for the sake of promoting books.
Exactly, right. Well, Tawna, I want to switch over to what we call our fresh fiction facts. So these are some quick questions, kind of what first comes into your mind, okay? Who was your first book boyfriend or girlfriend?
Oh my gosh. I can't remember any names. In middle school, I read a lot of those like, you know, sweet dreams romances. So I'm going to shift to like older because I can't think of any names off the top of my head. But Jennifer Cruzy has a lot of great book boyfriends I'm in love with. But I think Finn Tucker from Welcome to Temptation is probably one of my all-time favorite and earliest book boyfriends.
Now, even though you write a lot of rom-coms, what's your favorite genre to read?
Oh gosh, I can't pick one. I love reading, I mean, just romance in general, but I love everything from like, you know, seat of your pants suspense to, you know, historical, the occasional paranormal. I mean, rom-coms are my bread and butter, but I mean, yeah, you name it. I mean, I've been in the same book club for almost 25 years, and we read, you know, everything from fiction, nonfiction, memoirs, yeah, YA, all kinds of stuff. I just love variety.
What's your favorite trope to write?
Fish out of water, probably. Fish out of water, and opposites attract, usually some combination of those two.
What's your favorite writing fuel?
I am probably the only like overhydrated person. Like I will refill this probably about a dozen times a day. So it's just water. I love all day I drink water. And then usually in the mornings, it's like a couple cups of tea. In the evening, it might be wine, but I'm just like constantly drinking something.
Well, the water's always good. Do that. I'm just not great at it yet. Work in progress. What 3 items would you have on you if you were stranded?
Ooh, what, am I stranded somewhere in particular, like a desert island, or am I stuck in a snowstorm in my car?
Let's go with the desert island. We've had too much snow. Let's go with something a little bit warmer.
I agree. Yeah, we just got back yesterday from Kauai, and now I'm here in Oregon and it's snowing outside. So that's why I've got snow on the brain. Oh gosh. Can I have my Kindle like fully loaded with books?
Any 3 items, anything.
Kindle fully loaded with books. I'm going to count my husband as an item, and let's see. Endless supply of kale salad.
Oh, wow. Okay. Kale salad.
I make this great massaged kale salad, and it's like kale, and you de-stem it, and lemon zest and lemon juice and Parmesan and olive oil, pine nuts, garlic. And then you get in there and just like mash the hell out of it. So it's like this nice massaged texture. And it's just like, I could eat like gallons of the stuff.
Okay, I'm kind of scared to ask this then. What luxury item or unnecessary product or service is something that you absolutely can't live without?
Luxury item, gosh.
I mean, if you're talking about kale salad, I'm
gonna probably get off this interview and think of better answers to these things, but you told me to come up with whatever springs into my head the fastest. Luxury, okay, I got it. We have to have a 2-headed shower because my husband and I shower together almost every day, and it's you know, not I mean, sometimes it's actually, I did try to get my tax accountant to let me write it off on my taxes, because it's like we plot most of my books in there. Like we have these conversations, and almost every book I write ends up with a shower sex scene. So can I write it off on taxes? And he told me no, not unless I had it documented how it was used in my book research. So since I don't happen to have that documented, I didn't get to use that as a tax write-off. But yeah, the two-headed shower that's big enough for two people to just hang out and chat and soap up and visit about their days. That's my luxury item.
See, I remember seeing them from the movie Mommy Dearest. She had that elaborate shower, multiple shower heads, and I'm like, that is the kind of shower I want when I grow up, because we didn't have that. It was a basic shower. Okay. Side point there. What childish thing do you still do as an adult?
Oh gosh, many things. Make juvenile, like Beavis and Butthead level jokes all the time. I think probably people have told me that I'm like an adult woman trapped in a 13-year-old boy's body and their mind of a 13-year-old boy, and they're probably right.
What is your most memorable athletic feat?
Oh, geez. Tripping over my own feet mostly. No, I'm not, I have zero coordination, but so yoga, I've been really into yoga for a long time. I'm not going to say I'm graceful about it, but I also love stand-up paddleboarding, and combining the two and not falling ass over tea kettle into the water is like I can do a back bend a wheel on a paddleboard sometimes and not fall. So
wait, on a paddleboard. Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
There's probably a picture on my website somewhere, but yeah, that's.
How do you unwind after a good or bad writing day?
Glass of wine and hot tub, probably.
Okay. What is the best advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. Best advice. I'm trying to think. Writing advice, or it can be any kind.
Any kind. We don't want to limit you. I
mean, don't be afraid to laugh at yourself. I think that's, being able to laugh at myself is probably, backbone of my writing career, but probably my life in general. I do a lot of really stupid shit, and that it ends up in my book, and the ability to use it, put it to good use is probably has saved me a lot of tears over the years.
Okay, so I'm really curious about this one because of the range of books that you've written. Which character from any of your books would you most want to be friends with?
Oh gosh. Okay, I'm gonna turn and stand at my bookshelf for just a second. Okay, I'll pick kind of an obscure one. I don't know if anybody's read Let It Breathe. It was one of my kind of on that fringe of women's fiction romantic comedy, but it's set at an Oregon vineyard, and it was the second book that came out in my contract with Montlake years ago. So the heroine, Reese, is the vineyard owner and kind of the tight ass, but she has this crazy cousin named Larissa, and she's sort of the wild child of the family. And there was something about, she was just a secondary character, but there was something about her that, like, as soon as I was done writing that, I'm like, I miss her. I mean, I even years later, I would like kind of be thinking, gosh, I gotta call that chick. What was her name? Oh yeah, wait, it was an imaginary friend. That's not a real person. I can't go hang out with her for cocktails. So yeah, Larissa from Let It Breathe.
Oh, awesome. Who would you want to be stuck in an elevator with?
Oh, if I can't say my husband, then I'm gonna say George Clooney.
Oh, that works. Definitely. And what's your favorite distraction when you're avoiding writing?
Oh, I'm gonna probably say Facebook. I can get lost there, and I can like somehow justify it to myself as research. Like, oh, I'm just reading all these interesting posts, and people are posting quirky things. And it's, if I read this quirky article about, what type of cheese are you, then surely that's going to make its way into a book at some point.
Pros and cons of social media, right?
Yeah.
Well, and also as the most important question, what is the best way for our readers to stay in touch with you?
I am probably on the Book of Face most often as far as social media. But if you go to tawnafenske.com and sign up for my newsletter, I do send out a newsletter anywhere from once or twice a month to when I have a new release coming a little bit more often, but it's chock full of like goofy stories, all kinds of like whatever. When I have a book that's free or on sale, I'll let readers know there. Anything from deleted scenes to silly stuff like several years ago, after possibly a few too many glasses of wine, I bought a trophy that says Kitty of the Month on it. And so each month we crown a Kitty of the Month, and that Kitty of the Month gets announced in my newsletter, and along with his or her crowning achievements to earn Kitty of the Month for that month. So yeah, that kind of thing ends up in my newsletter, and just, yeah, some of the behind the scenes secrets about books. Yeah, we'll give away lots of freebies, anything from autographed paperbacks to coasters to you name it. So yeah, newsletter is probably a great way to stay in touch.
And you mentioned the prequel. So what should our readers be looking out for you next?
So yeah, like the Assassins in Love series it's my first time doing a rapid release. I've never done that before, where like boom, the books come out, boom, 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 one after the other really quickly. So best way to pop into that. So right now, the last book in my Ponderosa Resort series, called Dr. Hot Stuff, is currently free. So you can grab that, and that in that book is where you will meet Dante, the hitman. And as soon as I met that guy in that book, I'm like, oh, this has to be a whole book series. So Dante is one of the three guys at the core of the Assassins in Love series. Mm-hmm. And on Monday, the prequel also will be free. That will launch, and that's called Killer Looks. And then the main books in that series, full-length novellas. The prequel is a novella, but the main books in that series will rapid release April, May, and June. So those are all up for pre-order. And yeah, so right now, basically, I have two things for free, and also the brand new release with Entangled, the best kept secret. So it's been a busy year.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out to spend with us. I mean, the half hour has flown by, and I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. It's been super fun. I was delighted to be able to join you guys, and I really appreciate you chatting with me. I like talking to anybody, since I work in my pajamas from home most of the time.
So we'll look forward to you sticking around for some additional Q&A with our other readers then.
I can't wait.
All right.